Now tonight's second class of the Hobby Azon series is going to be focused on building our actual hobby audience. Now I think this is a pretty exciting class because this is not only something that you'll be doing initially when you're starting this whole thing up, but ultimately this audience is really the core of what you're trying to do here. And you'll really be able to continually utilize this core audience to drive traffic to your site pretty much whenever you want to. So this is not only useful when you're first getting started, so you can have access to a decent pool of traffic, but then as your website grows, as your audience has been out there for longer, it's simply going to continue to grow in size. And so you're not just going to be limited to the Google traffic that you could bring into a website, but you'll also have this continually growing audience that you will also be able to add into that. So it makes a really powerful combination, and a number of the tactics that I'm going to be teaching you guys in this particular class are going to show you how you can build this audience, but also how you can build it really fast. This is not something where you're going to have to sit around waiting years to get, an audience of 1,000 people or something like that. You can easily accomplish that within a couple of months. And that's really an optimistic type of goal because personally, I built up about 800 members in about 4 months or so, but I really did not aggressively pursue building this audience. And this is something I'll be talking to you guys about during the course of this class, and simply pointing out how you can put forth a minimal amount of effort to get pretty good results, or you can really go way above and beyond that and honestly get even better results from this entire strategy. So with that said, your whole entire goal for this particular class should be to start out by getting your Facebook group built and getting some kind of an initial audience in that group. And then you're going to be continually working on growing this audience and engaging this audience going into the future. So some of the things we're going to be talking about tonight are really initial steps that you'll want to be taking at this point in the course, and other things are really more long-term goals or steps that you would want to be taking to kind of continually build and improve upon what you start. So with that said, I want to talk about the audience, at least kind of in a bit of a vague nature here for just a few minutes before I start getting into all of the specifics of my particular strategy. Now, the first thing is, why should you bother with building this audience? You can take the strategy that I will be teaching you in this course as far as the website that I'm going to be teaching you to build over the next couple of classes in this series. You could only build that website and completely ignore the audience altogether, and it could still succeed. Your site could still bring in Google traffic, get decent search rankings, and convert the traffic that way. The point of this audience, though, is simply that you can supercharge the results that you would normally get from that website. So you can still have all that Google traffic, but then all of this audience traffic is going to be extra. And it's not just a one-time shot. This is something where you're going to be able to build a loyal following, and people will eagerly consume the content that you put out there, and they will be much more likely to want to buy through your website as a result. So you're not only getting more traffic from this audience, but you're also going to be getting traffic that is much more likely to actually follow along with the things that you are doing and to actually complete the sales that you are after. Now, which came first, the audience or the website, is something that I also wanted to mention to you. Ultimately, the work that you're going to be doing on your website, it's likely going to take a little bit of time. Even if it only takes you, say, a couple of weeks to put the website together, that time period is still a time where your audience could be sitting around growing for you. The initial work that you're going to need to do to start building this audience really does not take a lot of time or effort. So go ahead and get that started up now. Let your audience grow itself between now and when you get your website finished. And then as soon as your website is complete and you're ready to open it to the public, you'll already have this audience sitting there ready to go and direct to this site. I also believe that this is a useful approach because when you are building your audience to start, you are not focused on marketing or advertising anything at all. You're purely focused on building a quality group and engaging people with good content. So people are not going to be thrown off by thinking that the group solely exists to try to market something to them. That really comes as more of an afterthought. Now, during the course of this particular class, I'm going to be teaching you how to build a Facebook group. However, there are other kinds of audiences that you could certainly consider if you have knowledge of building one of these other types of audiences, or simply if you can find another good source of it, like if you know of a really great forum where you believe you could pick up a lot of followers from, by all means, try to target some of those additional sources. But the main purpose of this strategy is to utilize this Facebook group. This is the way that I can teach you to do it fairly quickly. And so obviously that's what I will be focusing on in this particular class. But despite that focus, still, if you feel like you can utilize some other audience sources, by all means, do not ignore them. Now with that said, I want to talk about community connections first. This is something that, while it is not absolutely necessary to make this successful, if you do this type of stuff, it will help you out. It will help to move things along a lot faster. It will help to ensure that the people that follow you are more loyal, especially that initial round of people. That is simply to take some time and to reach out and interact and connect with other people that are in the hobby community. This could be simple interaction with them, striking up a conversation with somebody. It could be trying to find beginners or people that need help with various things and simply trying to offer some advice to them. In certain hobbies, there might even be large groups of people that want to engage in trading things within the hobby. For my particular hobby, this is actually something that's very, very prevalent. My hobby is plants. People heavily trade, buy and sell these plants with each other. So simply engaging in a number of trades, for example, with a fellow hobbyist, you're building a relationship with them. You're becoming friends with them. You're kind of building a level of trust with them even to successfully carry out that trade. And those loyalties follow over when you are building up this group. These people can be kind of your ground floor audience members. that you can get into your group without really having to do any kind of additional effort. So simply go out to other Facebook groups or potentially to various internet forums that are out there having to do with your hobby, and just simply interact with people. Try to make friends with some people. If you can get to talking to them privately, offer to connect on Facebook with them. That's really what your ultimate goal is. You want to have as many of these people as possible on your Facebook friends list, because when it comes time to create your group, you're going to be able to utilize anybody that is on your friends list and almost automatically add them to the group. In fact, Facebook has a setting having to do with that. Most people don't mess with their settings, and they just have the default value. And the default value simply allows for friends to freely add their other friends to any groups that they want to. So you make Facebook friends with them, and then later on you'll be able to load all these people up into your group initially. Now, another thing that you can do, in addition to just going after normal hobbyists or even beginners in your hobby, is to go after kind of the opposite type of people, the high ups, the experts in your hobby. It could be the people that run different kind of websites or businesses online having to do with the hobby. These people all have some kind of a following, most likely already. People either trust the information that they would put out if they are an expert. If they're a business owner, they likely have their own group of customers or people that maybe even follow them on Facebook already. Ultimately, you want to try to figure out who these people are in your hobby. Who are the well-respected names in the hobby? You can probably ask around, who's well-known, who's, if you will, famous or semi-famous within this particular hobby. And chances are the average person that's been in the hobby for any period of time could likely start rattling off a bunch of names. The cool thing is these days, the typical type of person that would have been looked up to in a hobby 10 or 20, 30 years ago might be somebody who has, published papers having to do with a hobby. It might be some kind of a famous sports figure, if it has to do with sports. It might be an author. But the point is, those expert figures, those famous figures within the hobby, were really not that reachable or obtainable many years ago. But these days, you would be surprised at how many of those types of people are easily reachable and obtainable online. You can actually get a lot of these kinds of people to join into your group eventually, and maybe to even help support it in some way. The way I like to approach it is this. Initially, you're not trying to get these people to join your group right now. You're just trying to strike up a conversation with them, become friends with them a little bit, or at least online acquaintances. Find out a little bit about them, about their business, about what their needs are, and ultimately you want to be thinking about how could your audience, your Facebook group, or your website that you're going to be building, how could all of that help their business? You may be able to strike up some kind of a deal, not necessarily right now in the beginning, but a little ways down the road, once you have a group built up and could actually offer something to them. A lot of these people will jump at the chance for some free extra marketing to help to reach their own goals. You also have people such as other Facebook group owners. A lot of times, the people that run a Facebook group in a hobby will almost be looked up to as these expert or authority figures as well within that hobby. As such, these people have a lot of influence. They might have a lot of people that would listen to the things that they say. And ultimately, they're going to be in the same position as you. They're going to have certain rules that go along with their Facebook group. They're going to have different needs for their Facebook group, even if it is simple as growing new members. All Facebook group owners will eternally want to get more members, no matter how many they ultimately have. So I like to use these two different aspects here. What do other groups not allow their members to do? And also, what could those groups use? What do they need? And I can eventually offer to satisfy some of these things, to help them with some of these things in order to get them to agree to let me essentially cross-promote my group on their group. Now, you will have some Facebook groups where the owners and the admins really don't care what you post, and you may be able to freely do something like this. I'll be talking about this as we go forward in today's class a little bit. But ultimately, I recommend to always get permission from a Facebook group owner before you advertise your own website or your group. They're going to be a lot more receptive to this type of thing. Well, at this point, you're just trying to get your foot in the door. You're trying to get familiar with some of the people that are within this hobby community, especially the ones that are participating online. You're wanting to get familiar with the experts. You're wanting to get familiar with the fellow Facebook group owners and simply try to become friends with them. You want to ultimately get them to be one of your Facebook friends because this will help you down the line with the rest of this strategy that I will be teaching you. Now, in terms of actually going through and seeking these people out, it likely doesn't require a lot of additional explanation. You know, if I wanted to try to figure out who some of the experts were in my hobby and or, you know, who some of the Facebook group owners are, even if I knew nothing about the hobby whatsoever, you know, it wouldn't be that difficult to do. I could go up and type in carnivorous plants, search for all the results, and go to the groups to simply try to find groups that have a large number of members, and I could first try to start targeting them. So this group has 9,000 something members. If I want to find out who the admin or admins are, I just click on members right here, and then I click on admins. So I can see that there are 9 people that are designated as an admin for this group. So I would likely just pick one. I might try to identify one of these that is more active than the others and simply reach out and start talking to them. And eventually these will be the same people that I will reach out to get permission to post about my group or about my website within their group. So this kind of acts as, you know, a way to easily find ways to cross-promote your audience and even down the line your website. Now in terms of the experts, search out people that have, you know, written books. Search out people that have various types of social media outlets where they're publishing information. Maybe people that are on YouTube or people that are, you know, really popular within certain Facebook groups, or maybe they have their own fan page. It really will kind of depend on what your hobby is as to who these kinds of people are. If you're in a really, really mainstream hobby where those top tier people would just be completely unreachable and unobtainable simply because Now, ultimately, building up all of those community connections, again, it's not something that you have to kill yourself over. If you're brand new to the community, if you're not already involved in some kind of an online community relating to your hobby, and you would essentially be starting from scratch there, then you don't have to spend months building up all of these relationships. You can go out there and see what you can try to, quickly do within the course of a couple of weeks or so. Make a couple of posts within Facebook groups or various forums offering information or even openly soliciting for, people to contact you if they need advice on something or if they have questions about particular topics. Certain things like this can, make it really easy for people to realize that you're there to help, and they will want to connect with you a lot of the time and become friends and follow the things that you have to say. If you can't put forth that effort, if you can only build up a small number of loyal friends within your hobby before you're ready to get your actual Facebook group started up, that's okay too. As long as you can make some good connections with other groups in terms of being able to self-promote your own group there, a lot of times that will be enough to build up a really nice audience base. So with that said, when you're creating your Facebook group, a lot of this stuff is fairly simple and straightforward. Up here in the corner of Facebook, once you are logged into your account, you have this little drop-down arrow which gives you a listing of menu options. Just click on Create Group and you will be able to start with at least the beginning details of setting this group up. A lot of this initial stuff, while it's pretty basic and straightforward, it's actually pretty important because a lot of these things is what will help to determine whether people can discover your group fairly easily or not. Once your group builds to a certain size, roughly in the 500 to 1,000 people range, and honestly, it does not take a lot of effort in most hobbies to be able to build it up to that size, the group will kind of take on a life of its own and build its own members. However, that really will not happen, at least not as easily, unless you pay attention to a couple of particular settings. One of those is going to be your group name. I usually encourage some kind of abstract naming these days, but here on Facebook, you really want to make it clear. If somebody only sees the name of your group, will they have any idea of what your group is actually about? As long as they can get a pretty good idea of what your group is about from just looking at the name, you're, at a good starting point there. For me, I would call a new group carnivorous plants, and anything beyond that would essentially be something to kind of summarize what my group is about, how it might be different from some of the other groups out there. Let's say I wanted to make some kind of a, buy, sell, trade type of Facebook group here. I might just simply call it carnivorous plants buy, sell, trade. In addition to this, I might also, not only want to be doing buy, sell, trade, I might want to be talking about, just simply the hobby in general. I don't want to restrict myself to only doing a buy, sell, trade type of a group. I essentially want kind of a mixture of the two, where people would just come in and talk, make posts about whatever they want to having to do with the hobby, but then other people would come in and make posts where they're trying to sell things or where they're trying to trade things that relate to the hobby. I might just say something like carnivorous plants, buy, sell, trade, conversation. So just kind of a bit of a variety group. If I wanted to try to restrict myself to a particular area, I might put that up at the beginning, USA carnivorous plants. Ultimately, you'll be able to go back and change this group name stuff at a later point in time, but it's a good idea when you're getting started to at least get a pretty good idea of what you want to be calling your group. And I feel like the self-explanatory names do a better job of attracting new members than the more straightforward, creative kind of names that a lot of times you can kind of be a bit inclined to want to choose for your group name. My website that I'm going to be building, or that I've already built, is called Eden CPs, but I'm not calling my group name Eden CPs. Even though I could, I'm essentially using these as two separate entities. One is a Facebook group that's not totally dedicated to that website, but it will be promoting the website at least as one of the things that this Facebook group is doing. So I don't completely dedicate the group to the website. I'm thinking more about attracting people that might be searching on Facebook. For example, when they're searching up here for different kinds of groups, they're going to be entering in things like keyword phrases. And so those keywords relevant to your hobby, I feel like, are the most important things you can be including in your group name. Now for the members, at this point, you don't want to be trying to put a ton of members into your group. If you have a family member or a friend that you can throw into your group, I would recommend doing that. Just pick one person that you can throw on there at least when you're first getting started, and later you'll go back in and you'll add in more of your friends. Now I do recommend making this a favorite. This is just going to make sure it shows up in this top list of links over in the left-hand sidebar on Facebook, so it's just going to be easier to relocate this group in the future, at least for you. The privacy setting, I recommend going with either public or closed. The main difference between these two is simply whether anybody can see the content that has been posted within the group. A public group will allow all of your content to be seen by anybody, even if they are not a member of the group. While closed, people will have to join the group to be able to see those posts. In either of them, they'll have to be a member to actually be able to comment or to make any kind of a post. Now, I feel like a closed group does a better job of attracting people to actually join the group. You know, if they land on your group page and they even want to be able to see what's going on in that group, they have to request to join the group. However, if you're dealing with a public group, you can kind of have lurkers that never really join the group, but they may still be browsing the content that is in your group. Now that's not necessarily a completely bad thing in all cases. It's just kind of a matter of personal preference sometimes, because each one really has advantages and disadvantages to it. Now I have my group set as a closed group and it's doing just fine, so it just goes to show that you do not have to have a public group to be able to get it to grow its members really quickly. However, an advantage to having a public group would be that it's a little easier to get search traffic to it. That content in the group can end up getting indexed by Google, for example. Whereas in a closed group, all of that gets hidden. But again, I feel like it's more enticing for people to join the group. You don't end up with people that are lurking, and ultimately the people that don't actually join your group, even if they're browsing your content, they're not as good as the people that are actually a member of your group. You want them to be a member, so when you create a post in your group, they actually get an official notification through Facebook letting them know about it. That's how you can kind of drive that traffic a lot faster. Once you have this information set up and you go to the next step, you're just going to be selecting an icon here. If there's something here that closely relates to what your hobby is about, you could certainly select that. Like, for example, I might choose this little plant icon right here. But if I couldn't find anything that was a good fit, I would likely end up going with this icon. It looks like a group of people within this little blue circle. This seems to be representative of a Facebook group. I have seen a lot of groups that seem to use this particular icon, and these are the icons that show up in the sidebar here. So either pick something relevant or choose this group icon is my recommendation. Once you get your group created, you're going to be taken to a fairly blank page, kind of like what you see here on my screen. The first thing you want to do is click on this three-dot icon, and this is going to open up a menu. You want to click on Edit Group Settings. Under Edit Group Settings, you have a slightly wider variety of options here, and this is also where you would go if you wanted to edit your group name in the future. We are here, though, to take care of setting up the rest of the stuff that is currently already blank. Number one, under Group Type, you click on the plus icon here, and they have a number of different categories, different kinds of groups that you can designate this as. Personally, I went with buy, sell, trade. It doesn't seem like picking any particular group type here will limit your group in any way unless you pick something other than the buy, sell, trade. When you do not pick buy, sell, trade, you don't have those features available to your group where members can create their own posts offering up things for trade or offering up things for sale. If you do select it though, you get to incorporate those Facebook features. So I feel like if it is something relevant to your hobby, if people actually have an interest of trading some of their hobby related things or even buying and selling these things on any kind of a regular basis, it can be good to incorporate that into your group because it's just one extra thing to have in your group for people to kind of pay attention to. In my hobby, this is actually a really strong selling point because the plants a lot of times can be hard to find. And one of the most common ways of finding them is not from going out to a store or even from buying them at any particular online retailer. It's actually buying them from fellow hobbyists. They have a much larger supply than any of the commercial retail outlets do. So people readily seek out things that are being sold or plants that are being traded within my particular hobby. That may be the case with some other hobbies and it may not with others. So just depending on what you feel like you have been able to identify as the things that people want within your hobby, the things that they would want out of a Facebook group, you can choose whether or not to be including that. Now the next thing I want to mention, the description here, has to do with the name to a certain degree where you can kind of include keyword phrases within this description, and this can help people to discover your group. But ultimately, this is also what people are going to see before they decide to join your group. especially if you have a closed privacy group like I have mine set to. A closed privacy group, they're not going to see the actual post, the actual content that has been taking place. So the only thing they're really going to have to go on to decide whether or not to join you would be the name and then also the description. So the description, you want to tell people what your group is about. It can also be a good place to incorporate some rules. For example, I could just say something like family-friendly environment to talk about and even buy, sell, trade your favorite carnivorous plants. Buying, selling, and trading is limited to the USA only. So here, I'm essentially setting forth the rules. I'm telling people that buying, selling, and trading is allowed. I'm also telling people that they can essentially freely discuss anything relating to this hobby. But I'm also kind of warning them to, keep it clean, saying this is a family-friendly environment. I'm also limiting the buying, selling, and trading to the USA only for two particular reasons. Number one, I want the USA traffic more than the traffic from any other countries because the items my website will promote on Amazon ultimately are for USA consumers. Some of the products can only be purchased by people that live in the USA. So those are the people that I am looking to target. The other reason is the plants. You cannot legally ship them outside of the country without going through complicated paperwork and import and export permit processes. So with that said, I lay out these rules for people ahead of time, kind of gives them an indication of what to expect. I don't have to go into crazy detail about it, but I could go on a little deeper and maybe mention some of the different kinds of carnivorous plants just to help to hit some additional keywords that I may not already have hit on within the group name or elsewhere in my description. Beyond that though, you also have the tags to work with, and the tags allow you to add specific keywords, but what you're really doing here is you're targeting things that people have marked on Facebook as an interest of theirs. If they have gone and liked a certain interest page on Facebook, for example, then it'll tag them under these various keywords. So I can type in the beginnings of something related to my hobby. So I could type in like carnivorous, and I'm going to see a number of the different topics or interests that come up, and I will also see the number of people that have liked it. My ultimate goal with the tag section here is to find 5 tags, 5 keyword phrases relating to my hobby as close as I can possibly get them, but I am also looking for the keywords that are going to deliver the most amount of people from those particular interests. Some people call carnivorous plants insectivorous plants, but as you can see, there's only 205 people that like this as opposed to carnivorous plant. So I certainly have the better phrase already picked out. If I couldn't come up with other phrases to use, I may be able to go back and use that particular one. But when you have other phrases that you can utilize that are just as good, if not better, then those are definitely the ones that you want to go for. So here I have a type of carnivorous plant, the Nepenthes, and you can see that there are specific kinds that have a small number of people that have liked them, but then the entire kind of plant in general has a significantly larger number. So this one has almost 2,000 people. So again, I'm looking to do the same type of thing here. I could look at the different possible types of plants. That one's looking pretty decent. And then I come up with 5 different tags that all have a fairly decent number of people that have liked them. This is going to help with group discovery, people that are searching up here for various topics. It will also help with the recommended groups. People that are already in a group, when they are browsing a group, it's going to show them over in the right-hand sidebar a number of other similar groups that are either similar to that particular group or the members that are in those groups might be similar. And so it recommends those groups to other people. That's how your group kind of automatically grows itself once it reaches a certain size. Facebook kind of takes over those promotions for you and drives people. But again, it's dependent upon having good tags, a decent description, and also a decent group name that all relate to your hobby. So ultimately, this will help to bring in the right type of people to your group. Now, the final thing I want to mention here before I proceed on are the various approval or permission types of settings that are available to you here. One of them is membership approval, determines whether anybody can add and approve members or whether it is just the administrators that can approve members. Ultimately, anybody can add people to your group, but this setting determines whether anyone can approve people to get into the group or whether you have to do that. Personally, I recommend leaving it set to the most lenient setting that you possibly can, and that's really going to be the default setting that Facebook sets it to as well. The only time you'd really want to make your group more restrictive than these default settings is when you have a good reason to do so. If you're getting targeted by a lot of spammers, for example, and people are getting harassed by bad content, you may have to take steps to try to, cancel that stuff out. This could be done through membership approval. It can also be done through things such as post approval. You don't really want to restrict members from being able to post to your group. That's what this setting, the posting permissions, would be doing if I were to change it to only admins can post. I don't really want to do that. Even if I had a lot of spam taking place in this group, I still would not want to change that setting. But I might change post approval to where I would have to actually approve a new post for it to make it through. Now, the thing to remember with this setting, if you are using it, comments will still make it through without approval. So a post that is already in the group, you can go into that post and make a comment on it, and those will never be held for moderation or for approval, no matter what these group settings are. So there's still always going to be a way that people can kind of break through these settings and post spam into your group if they want to. So personally, I find the best way to do it, as long as you are keeping some kind of a regular eye on this group and the content that's being posted, leave it at the least restrictive settings possible to encourage the most amount of engagement and activity from your members. So save your settings from going through all of these options. Back on the main page of the group here, you can see a number of the things that I have started to do, like adding tags and updating the description. This stuff gets posted within the group. But other than that, I really don't have anything here to start with. There's 2 things that I really recommend for you to do before you start actually working on adding people into your group. One of them is simply to make some kind of an initial post where you just click on Start Discussion right up at the top and write something having to do with your hobby. Maybe you share some pictures having to do with your hobby or a project that you are working on. It could also be something as straightforward as rules for the group that you would want to set forth. You know, if you don't want people to be posting advertisements for their own website, or if you only want people to be, trading, buying and selling that are within a certain country, state that information within a post. And then once you post it, you can make anything sticky by pinning that post. You just click on the little down arrow for any post that you want and click on pin, and it's going to put that post up at the top of your group. Even as new activity takes place, it will still maintain that up at the top. So again, it's a good place to put some rules. You may eventually even put some kind of an advertisement for your website as a pinned post once you get to that point. For now though, just put something out there so you don't have a completely empty group when you are first getting things started up. The other thing that I recommend to do besides posting a pinned post is to set up some kind of a group photo. This doesn't have to be anything professionally done. You don't have to go out and hire a graphic designer to make some kind of group picture or graphic for your Facebook group here. It can just be any kind of picture that has to do with your group. You can even go and fetch a picture off of Google if you want to. For me, any picture of carnivorous plants would be a great example of something that would fit great up at the top. These two things at least gives your group a less naked look to it, to where when you're going through and adding members and people go to see, what is this group that I've been added to, or what is this group that somebody is promoting to me, so there's something there for them to decide on whether or not they actually want to go through with remaining a member or even joining into the group. For example here, this is the actual group, my carnivorous plant group. You can see the group photo up at the top is just a picture of carnivorous plants. These are actually pictures of them in the wild, about 15-20 minutes or so from where I live. The title that I have set, Carnivorous Plant Trades, Sales, Conversation, USA. Fairly simple and straightforward, and pretty similar to what I was pointing out to you previously. My group settings is again pretty much the same. Buy, sell, trade. I have a very short and straightforward description out there, and then a number of relating keywords and tags to go along with it. So this here to give you the real life example, and obviously what I was kind of just walking you through so you could see how it was all done from scratch. So once you have this Facebook group created, you can then start adding new members to it. I have a 3-step process that I recommend for you to go through when you are first adding new members to your group. And again, this is just that initial round of members when you are first getting it started. We'll talk about things that you can do later on in terms of long-term growth, even though you can certainly replicate any of these strategies going into the future to add more people to your group. The first one is adding friends and family. This is basically going to be anybody on Facebook that is a friend of yours that wouldn't mind you adding them into this group. I recommend to start with your actual real life friends and family. Mention to them, hey, I'm creating this Facebook group. Do you mind if I add you into it? You don't have to do anything. You don't have to say anything. Just, accept joining the group or just don't leave the group, essentially. That, to begin with, putting some initial friends and family on there will not only give you a member count that people will be able to see, so it won't be joining a Facebook group that has 2 members in it, but also some of those people might be willing to kind of be cheerleaders for you in a way. They might be able to help stir up activity. If it's a hobby that they're actually interested in, you might be able to encourage them to, make a post every week about what they're doing in the hobby. Simple content additions to Facebook groups like that will really help to make a major difference in terms of the activity and the engagement level, especially when you're first getting started. And these existing family members and friends of yours can be a really great source of loyal people that be willing to do that type of stuff for you, especially if they're involved in the same hobby. Even if they're not, still try to get them to just join your group to help your member number look higher, at least in the beginning, until you go through some of these other steps. Then tell them they're free to, leave if they want to. In the beginning, though, having a higher number of members makes it simply easier to attract more members to it. Nobody wants to join an empty Facebook group. Next up, but still part of that, targeting other Facebook friends of yours. These would be the people that you were able to make friends with from going through the community connections portion of this class that I was talking about earlier. Making friends with fellow hobbyists, making friends with other group owners and other experts in your field. A lot of these types of people would be great now to go and add them into your group. To do this, it's actually quite simple. Within the Facebook group, click on the 3 dots again and look for the Add People link. If you happen to be doing this on a smartphone or a tablet or something like that, you may find that that Add People link actually kind of appears to be in this side menu over here, or these tabs, I guess you would call them, instead of under the 3-dot menu. On either device, you can still do this same type of thing though. You click on Add People, and it gives you a listing of your friends and or a search box to start typing in their names. But if you just click on the search box on the desktop, it'll start adding people to that particular list. So all I would have to do is just click on somebody here and they get added to my list and their name is now replaced with a different person. So I can just keep going through and clicking on one person after the next, people that are good friends or family members of mine or people that I know are interested in this hobby, and I can just automatically add them into my group with really out having to get their permission or anything. So that's all it takes to add new members. Obviously, if you can build up a pretty large amount of friends on your Facebook account that are interested in your hobby before you ever even start this group, then you'll already have a pretty decent number of people that you can put on there. But even if you can just put 50 people or something like that to start with before you proceed on to the next step, it will certainly help you out. The next step is going to be to promote your group within other Facebook groups that relate to your hobby. To do this though, I highly recommend, like I mentioned earlier in today's class, to get permission. This is where having some connections or friendships with some of the other Facebook group owners will now come in handy. You reach out, you contact them privately to simply ask permission. Hey, I have this new Facebook group. Would you mind if I shared a link for it in your group? Sometimes they won't want you to do that. Other times they'll not have a problem with it, especially since you bothered to ask permission. A lot of people will just go and post that type of stuff and never bother asking the group owner. The group owners appreciate you taking the time to ask them before just assuming it's okay or just doing it anyways and not really caring. So a lot of times you can get a yes just by simply asking, even if ordinarily they might have said no. I've done it in my own Facebook groups before, let people promote just simply because they had the consideration to take the time to ask me instead of trying to spam my group. If you can't get them to just outright agree to you promoting your group in their group, there may be other ways around it still. One possible thing that you can do is identify how their group is different from the group that you are building. Are there things that are not allowed in their group that you will allow people to do in your group? The buying and the selling and the trading feature that I added onto my group is actually something that not all other groups do. Maybe half of them at best will have that buy, sell, trade feature on it. The ones that do not, they still have a problem with people just posting ordinary messages in their group trying to sell or trying to trade things. And so for some of those groups, it's actually a problem with them, something that they have to constantly moderate and keep up with. So if you find these groups, you can pitch to them, hey, I know you don't allow buying and selling and trading in your group, or, maybe you don't allow discussion about something particular. You let them know, hey, I created a group that does cater to that type of thing. Would you mind if I promote that in your group? And, mention to people that, buying, selling, and trading is not allowed in that current group that they are in. But, if they are interested in that type of thing, they can come and join my group. Once you get this permission to post in somebody's group, it actually starts moving along pretty quickly from there. You can obtain a rather large amount of members in a pretty short period of time from just getting one single group to allow you to make one single post that will then promote your group. As an example, I told you earlier that I didn't very aggressively pursue promoting this particular Facebook group. In fact, I actually haven't done any of the work for it. My wife has been doing this, and she is not a professional marketer. It's kind of something that we've been building up purely from a hobby standpoint, and we realized how powerful this would actually be for Amazon affiliates too. And so I started incorporating all this stuff and found that it does indeed work quite well. So if you pursue more than just one group, for example, in the beginning, then you can actually get people accumulated rather fast. I don't want to lose my place in this particular group where I am, but there are 5,000 people or so in this particular group. I got permission from the owner of this group to allow us to post there. And I don't think I'm in the correct place, actually. Yeah, here we go. This is the group with 5,000 people in it. So in April, we posted about our group. Pretty straightforward, simple post, nothing complicated here, just a couple of sentences inviting people to join a new group. We tell them what it's called. We tell them what kind of people that are welcome. We're kind of giving them a basic rundown of what the group is about. We're welcoming anyone worldwide, but ultimately trading and selling of live plants is USA only. It's also a family-friendly group. And then here, this is also really important. I would like to thank the ICPS forum, that is the people that run this particular carnivorous plant group that we are posting in, for allowing this post, and would also like to remind everyone that sales are not allowed on the ICPS forum. So come join the fun, trade, sell, converse, and happy growing to all. Not only are we pointing out that we obtained permission from the group owner to be making this post, but this is actually the reason why they ended up agreeing to allow this particular post. It's because of the sales. They do not allow sales in their Facebook group. They do not allow trading in their Facebook group. It's purely discussion only. So they have had a problem with this kind of thing, and they were happy for us to come along and to try to say, hey, people that want to sell stuff, come over here and do it instead. And we got a pretty decent amount of people that came and joined up from that. Now, I mentioned building essentially fans, friends within the hobby community. Regular posts were being made in this Facebook group and in other groups and in forums and places like that, showing our plants that we were growing around the house, just simply talking about things relating to the hobby and building those friendships at the same time. So even after we had announced this particular group and started building members on it, we are still interacting in these other groups too and working on building even more of a following from them. Now, I want to fast forward in this group here just a little bit up to June or so. Here we go, June the 16th. We actually made another post for our Facebook group in this exact same group once again. This is actually a contest that we did, a giveaway essentially, where we were just giving away some spare plants that we had laying around that we knew other people would likely be interested in owning. So we made it a thing within our group, hey, once we hit 500 members, we're going to have this little giveaway. When we then started our giveaway, we also went and advertised that giveaway elsewhere. This particular group being pretty much the main place that we did that. So that first date, April the 26th, until this date here, June the 16th, that's essentially the time period that it took to build 500 members in this brand new Facebook group. And we only promoted it within this one other Facebook group that had 5,000 members in it. So that was less than 2 months that it took to build up 500 members from only doing one single promotion on it. That's really not a lot of effort that went into it, and there are certainly a lot more groups than just one that we could have done this on. In fact, we already have some other ones lined up that we're going to be doing, and we'll be working on that. As the website gets more and more developed, we're kind of reserving certain ones to promote the group or even to just use them to cross-promote the website. So you can not only utilize your own group, you can utilize all of these other groups and reach quite a lot of people in a short period of time. Just to show you the kind of interaction and stuff that you can get off of just a single post or something like that on some of these hobby-related topics. This is something that my wife was actually wanting to get done for a while. It's a carnivorous plant tattoo. This is not a stick-on or a henna or anything. This is the real deal. Just sat in a chair for 14-ish hours or something like that getting this thing done. She just simply posted a picture, finally got my tat finished, love it, and posted it up on this forum. She got 474 likes, 33 comments, 17 shares just on this post. So things that have to do with your hobby, people like talking about this stuff. Certain hobbies like the carnivorous plants that I'm into, it's sometimes not a large enough number of people to really be widespread. Carnivorous plants is not really like a mainstream hobby compared to something like baseball or basketball is. But the people are really passionate. The people will readily engage in conversation, and they might not know a lot of people in their real life that actually engage in that hobby, and so they seek those people out online. I've actually only met, over the course of more than a decade of growing carnivorous plants, I've only met maybe 5 or 6 people in person that actually grow these plants. A couple people came to my house, and I went to a couple of other people's houses that live within a couple hours or so of me. I don't know a single person that lives within my city besides my own wife that grows these plants though. So it's not a crazy widespread hobby, but even this is enough to, be able to attract a really nice audience for it. You can see here, this is that same ICPS, the International Carnivorous Plant Society forum group that I'm in, has over 5,000 members. This is where we were advertising our group. And again, this is the only group that we did this in. One group that had 5,000 members. And in less than 2 months, we were able to hit 500 members and have still not advertised it in another group since that time, and have almost grown up to close to 900 members already now. So you can see how this type of a strategy, especially if you want to get really aggressive with it, you can build really substantial groups of potentially thousands of people in just a couple of months time period. Now the next step of this has to do with the experts that hopefully you started talking with before, but even if you didn't, it's okay. You could even start going out and trying to find these people at this point in time. What you're wanting to do now, at the very least, is to try to get some of these experts to join your group. The reason why we are saving this step for last, and we didn't go ahead and add these experts in our first step when we are adding our Facebook friends, essentially. Even if they are a Facebook friend, you want to try to exclude them from that first step and hold off till the end here. The reason why is because we want more members in our group when we seek these experts out to try to get them to join. Again, nobody really wants to join a Facebook group with only a few members. If you can have a couple hundred members in it, at the very least, when you start seeking these people out, it's more of a reason for them to want to join. A lot of times the experts, they'll want an audience. If they're just an ordinary hobbyist and they just enjoy sharing their hobby with others, a lot of times, they do that just to try to help others because they want people to be able to see it, So if you can offer them a decent audience to, be able to reach out to and kind of give them unrestricted freedom to do so. You know, a lot of times you can convince these people not just to join, but to post some kind of regular content. You know, you might have to strike up some kind of a deal with them. You know, hey, I'll let you promote your website, or I'll let you promote your own Facebook group, you know, and in return you maybe, you know, make one post a month or something on my Facebook group. These people not only will be looked up to by the general community, you know, and they'll be like, hey, so-and-so, you know, does a post every month in this particular Facebook group. And, you know, some people will actually join and follow your group just because of that one particular expert that you were able to get to join. You may also be able to get some kind of cross promotion off of those experts. A lot of times they might have some kind of a Facebook fan page, or just a personal Facebook account, or some kind of an online business that has to do with the hobby. They might be able to cross promote your group while you send traffic to their website. You know, a lot of times that kind of stuff will not necessarily conflict with what you're trying to do on your website and the products that you're trying to sell. Chances are those commercial type of products, you know, most likely you're not going to run into the kind of people that are selling those sorts of things. But, you know, you likely will run into small business owners, you know, authors, other kinds of experts within your hobby. These types of people are readily out there on Facebook and are looking to grow their businesses. So you can kind of help them out while they also are able to help you out. Now, the main thing that you really want to be worrying about beyond building members in this audience is making sure that your audience doesn't go inactive. You need to somehow keep them engaged with your group. When a new post is created on your group, you know, people get emails sent to them from Facebook talking about, you know, a new post that was just made. When people kind of lose touch with your group, they no longer start following those emails or the notifications that pop up within Facebook, and then your activity level, you know, simply plummets. If you can maintain a really high activity level and a lot of engagement, people that genuinely want to know what you have to say next, you can get a significant amount of people out of your audience to engage with pretty much everything that you put out there. My 800 something people in my Facebook group currently, when just promoted one single website link to them, I was able to drive, I don't know, something like over 200 visitors out of 800. So that's like almost a quarter of the group that engaged with that one particular post. This, once you get into especially an audience with a couple thousand people, you know, you really get into some significant numbers in terms of the amount of traffic that you can send along to things. This gives you not only power to help out your own website, but also power to potentially help out some of those other experts and business owners within your hobby. And then in turn, those people can help to grow your audience. So a big part of how you do this is simply by keeping new things for people to see or read within your group. Creating your own post is the easiest way to go about this, especially if the hobby is something that you genuinely do yourself. You know, once every couple of days, once a week, or something like that, create a new post. Tell people what you've been doing in the hobby. My wife will do things like this sometimes on a daily basis, and it doesn't have to be anything great or anything spectacular or necessarily even anything that teaches somebody something. The other day, she potted up some new seeds that she had gotten in the mail, and she just took a picture of the pots of all the seeds and made a short comment about something about the the waiting game begins, and just posted that kind of stuff. And people engage with it. They start talking about their own seeds, and yeah, I hate the waiting game, and hey, where'd you get them from, and what kind are they, and simple little things like that that may only take a minute or two to put up in these groups. They can help to keep people readily engaged and active within your group. I also highly, highly recommend for people to be encouraging their audience members to interact with them, to ask questions to them. You don't want people to be afraid to reach out to you to ask for some extra help. This is a really great way to take people that are especially beginners within your hobby and get them to become loyal followers potentially for life by helping them to get started, by helping them to a lot of times save money by just simply giving them the right kind of direction in the beginning. A lot of times people just don't know what to do when they're first getting started in various hobbies, and it's easy to waste a lot of money in the process of figuring it all out. So just helping to point people in the right direction and making sure that they know that you're there, to try to help them out in those ways can go a long way. This could be some kind of a pinned post that you put up in your group, for example, where you just say, hey, anybody that's in the group, if you have questions, feel free to post. If you don't want to post it in the group, feel free to contact me privately, send me a message and ask whatever you want. I'd be more than happy to lend my knowledge and experience to you. When people are openly invited like that, they're a lot more likely to reach out and to do it. Otherwise, they feel like they're intruding, Even though my wife just started up this group back in April, and the end of April at that, she's already looked to by a lot of people as being an expert in the field already. We have been around this hobby for a long time, but we've never really stepped out there in the community for the hobby up until just this past spring or so. And the turnaround, the changes that have happened in that time period are significant. A lot of beginners especially, those are the people that they look up to these days, or the people that are, running a YouTube channel, or the people that are running a Facebook group, offering out their help, sharing their experiences with others. Also, this is kind of connected to encouraging people to ask questions, but privately responding to people's questions. When people take the time to message you privately, which if you're putting a lot of good information out there, you will have this type of thing. It may be stupid, silly questions. We've posted pictures of plants before, and people will send us messages saying, oh, is that for sale, or is that for trade, or something like that. And we're just trying to share pictures and not actually trying to sell something. Instead of shooting them down and just, ending the conversation there, we politely say, no, we're not currently, selling these. If they're looking to trade something, we ask them what they have to trade and the kinds of things they might be interested in. Maybe there's a different kind of a trade that we could arrange. Maybe we could just point them elsewhere where they could buy those things that they're looking to get. There's a number of different ways that you can turn even what might be an unwanted message or an unwanted question into a positive experience for the person that has asked it to you. And in turn, that helps to build them into loyal, longtime followers. This could be something that kind of takes place within your group. It could also be things that take place outside of your group. If you are just making posts on other Facebook groups, a lot of times you'll get people that'll send you private messages asking about something that you posted about. If you're on a public forum somewhere and you're posting things there, the same thing can kind of apply there. You might get private messages on the forum, people asking you questions. Take those as opportunities to make a new friend in the hobby. Make sure they friend you on Facebook. If they're not already in your group, make sure they know about your group and go check it out. The friends of yours that you're able to kind of build in this manner from doing things that I was just talking about, these are what I kind of consider to be your hobby friends. You know, the people you have helped out. They might be people that are a little bit behind where you are in the hobby, and so you're able to help them out with your knowledge and experiences. It may also be people that are essentially equal with you in the hobby, um, to where you're kind of sharing the experiences and you know, helping each other out as you go along. It could also be experts that you have been able to create friendships with along the way. Any of these people that you feel like might look up to you after a little while of doing this type of thing, or or if you feel like they have something that your audience would benefit from, these types of people can be prime candidates to solicit to get them to just try to make a commitment to make some kind of a regular posting in your group. Doesn't have to be every day, doesn't even have to be every week, even though, you know, if you can get an expert to post once a week, sure, that's great. If you can get them to post once a day, obviously that's awesome too. But you know, if people could only do one post a month for you or something like that, and you can get a number of different people to do these types of things, it simply helps to reduce the workload that you would put on yourself to create engaging content, to create activity within your group. It also gives the people in your group more of a variety other than just listening to what you have to say all the time. In a lot of cases, the friends of yours, you can likely get them to do this type of thing without really offering them anything. The experts, some of them might be happy to share the knowledge. It might be things that they're already doing on other groups, and you just might be able to convince them to start making their posts in your group instead. Others, business owners especially, they might be looking to gain something from it, but again, you could simply try to strike up some kind of a deal with them, like, hey, you know, make a post in my group once a month, share what you're up to, share some kind of advice, something of that nature. And, you know, you can cross-promote article on your website. You can cross-promote, you know, products that you might be featuring on sale this month, or, you know, whatever it is that they are looking for to help grow their own business. Try to help offer them that stuff in exchange for them helping you out. All of these things just simply helps to make your group kind of a all-in-one stop for your hobby, a place where people can talk about it, a place where people can learn about the hobby, where they can buy, sell, and trade things having to do with the hobby. And so they can just kind of come in every day and check out what's going on, share things, interact with others, read articles, check out pictures that are there, etc. Anything to help to keep their activity within your group will be beneficial to this long-term engagement that we are after. The sale and the trade post, something that I had talked about before. You know, it's not that difficult to get somebody to want to sell something. You can see within this particular group, there are currently 43 sale posts that are active right now. And these get cleared out once they're more than 30 days old or something like that. So these are only recent sale posts as well. I believe some of these could also be trade postings, if I'm not mistaken. That's a pretty decent amount of activity. You know, that's 43 people or 43 different times that people have come here and posted something, posted a picture of a plant that they are trying to sell. And these in turn get engagement on them. You know, people have actually been buying these plants. And when somebody will post one up, people sometimes comment on them and talk about the plants. So with that said, the selling and the buying and the trading within these Facebook groups, it's not what you want your entire group to be about, but it's something extra that brings people to your group. The people that are looking to make money, they can sell stuff and make some money there. The people that are looking to acquire more in the hobby, they can keep an eye and, you know, look for some good deals or look for things that they've been trying to find and haven't been able to find anywhere. At least in my hobby, the plants, especially with some of them being really hard to find, that makes something like that even more important for them. A lot more people readily want to have things promoted to them in the carnivorous plant industry. And in particular, they want plants promoted to them because they're hard to find. A lot of times if they're looking for a specific one, there's no retail store that'll sell that to them. They can only get it from a fellow grower, possibly. And so forums and Facebook groups has become a prime place for them to be looking out for this kind of stuff. Now, I'm not saying that that exact kind of thing would take place in any given hobby, but, you know, there's always something in demand within a particular, any given hobby. There's always things that people want to talk about or share, things that people are always looking to kind of upgrade or, you know, buy the best of, and other people that are looking to get out of the hobby and sell their equipment. So that same situation, while it may not be as sought after possibly as carnivorous plants in that aspect, pretty much any hobby should have some kind of a demand for buying and selling and trading. Now finally, providing content teasers is another method that you could use. This kind of connects to your website in a lot of ways, where you're going to be building tutorials, project guides, you know, just depending on whatever it is that you figured out that you want to add to your site, the things that you want to teach people or to help them with through your website. As you're working on all that stuff, you can tease your audience members with this information. In a lot of ways, you can kind of view this as like marketing hype. You are getting people excited about something before it's actually available for them to consume. Then when it is actually available, you have people that are instantly already wanting to go and check that out because they've been waiting for it. You've been teasing them about it for a while now. This is something that we were doing within our group. There's me working on building the grow chamber before, you know, we ever even really started putting a lot of these things together, at least for this particular project that's going to be a project on our website. As the project progressed a little bit, we posted a few teaser pictures as we went along, just so people could see what we were doing, engage in some conversation about it, and, get a halfway decent response just from throwing out these little teaser posts where, we're just talking about the projects that we're working on and, eventually leading up to actually notifying them, publishing your website to all of your members. So use a combination of all these different tactics and even other ones if you can think of things that your hobby would be interested in consuming on some kind of a regular basis. Anything that can help to bring them to your Facebook group on a regular basis, anything that can help to get them to engage with your group. By engaging, I'm talking about any activity. It could be reading a post, it could be liking a post, it could be leaving comments on it, it could be sharing the post. It really doesn't matter. Any kind of engagement like that is going to help your group in the long run, and it's also indication that you have people on your group paying attention to the things that you have to say. Now finally, I want to talk about long-term growth here for just a minute before we conclude today's class. Even if you get pretty good results from your initial round of adding members to this Facebook group that you're building, I would still highly recommend that you put at least some kind of effort going forward into continuing to add new members into this Facebook group over time. This can be done in a variety of different ways. You can also repeat any strategies that you may have used up until this point to grow members, adding new Facebook friends into it, promoting on other relating hobby groups, even going out there to other websites, forums, for example, if they will allow you to promote a link to your Facebook group, try to drive people from a different website over to it. Ultimately, though, it's not absolutely necessary to do this kind of stuff. I kind of gave you a bit of a rundown on the work that went into getting the members into my group and kind of a general time frame that it took. And I really didn't put forth too much effort with all of that. It was one single post to one single Facebook group. And then beyond that, it was nothing other than adding our own friends into that equation. Most of those not even being real life friends or family members, most of them being other people that we were able to meet in the community, people that we had recently traded plants with, things of that nature. Now, just like you did in the beginning, where you went out and you found groups and tried to get permission from them to allow you to promote your group in them, still try to do this type of thing going forward. New groups spring up every now and again. Just like you're trying to do with your group, other new groups might pop up, and they might grow pretty rapidly and be a good source of members for you. You can even sometimes go back to the groups that you were talking with the first time around, even the ones that said, no, I don't want you to promote in my group. And they might change their mind if you approach them again, especially if this time around you could offer them something in return for it. Even if it's just a cross promotion. Hey, let me promote my group in your group. I'll talk about, the things that we do in my group that, doesn't really take place or maybe isn't allowed in your group, and vice versa. You come over to my group, you make a post there, promote your group. with both of you having a decent number of members in your group, you know, it's a lot more of a win-win type of a situation for both you and for the other group owner. So even if they say no, just put it on the back burner. Go back to them later on and, you know, try to get them to come to some kind of an agreement in the future. You can also do things like running contests that will encourage engagement and also growth within your Facebook group. One of the things that we did with our group was kind of set milestones for people to try to strive for, like hitting 500 members, for example. I showed you a post a little earlier where we went back to that ICPS group and shared our group a second time and announced a giveaway that we were doing. That giveaway was something we did when we hit 500 members, and we actually encouraged people to help us achieve those levels before we reached it, before we ever did any kind of a giveaway. And then later on, during the actual giveaway, people were still kind of helping to cross promote it or to do other things that would actually get them qualified for the giveaways themselves. Now these contests, they don't have to be anything crazy. In fact, you don't even have to do these. For my hobby, this is something that made sense because it's plants. They're living things. They're actually, at least some of them are fairly easy to reproduce. And so I could just take extras of certain things that I have and offer to give them away for free in order to get other members of my audience to help me out with my group, to help with increasing the engagement level, to help with simply building more members onto it. As we got close to the 500 member level, we actually went and made a post in our own group, and people actually went out and eagerly started adding people into our group. For example, in here you can see kind of updates talking about the number of members that we are at and kind of encouraging people to add people to the group to help to increase the member count. And then once we, hit that certain member count, then we, would start doing these giveaways. And then the giveaways can be anything you want to. You can tell people that they have to like your post. You can tell people they have to comment. You can tell people they have to share your post. You can tell them that they get an entry for each one thing that they do. And then you kind of have a random drawing and give away whatever it is. This is something I may or may not be able to find the specific post. There's actually quite a bit of content that has kind of taken place in this group already. Here's one example. At the end of a contest, we just had all the names of people that qualified for it on a piece of paper, threw them in a bowl. We let our daughter choose the winning name, and people actually loved just the whole process, and she's has a tendency to be pretty cute. You can kind of see, we detailed the whole process for people so they could see, this the real thing. We actually gave away all this stuff And people, I don't think I'm seeing it here, but people actually made a post after all the giveaways and stuff were done from this thing, and were genuinely happy and thanking us for for giving away all that stuff for free. And it really helps to build, again, some of that long-term loyalty. But even without all of those giveaways and stuff, we still would have grown our member base pretty quickly by simply going out, getting our friends in it, and cross-promoting to these other groups. You can also do things like arranging special deals with various experts and other business owners. The people that we've been talking about before, you know, get them to make a post on their own Facebook timeline talking about your group, encouraging their own followers to join your group and offer them something in exchange for, doing that. Give them a special right to be able to promote or market something within your Facebook group that normally you wouldn't allow people to do. Now, anything that you can do to try to drive extra traffic to your Facebook group ultimately can be a source of new members. So you could certainly go far beyond the things that I've been talking to you about to try to drive new members to these things. But the things I've been talking to you about are the proven strategies that I've personally been taking advantage of and have been able to receive really fast results from. Most of that stuff, though, is limited to traffic off of Facebook. And ultimately, you can only grow so many members off of the other Facebook groups that are out there. At some point, you're likely going to want to maybe even exceed those groups and having more members than them. This is certainly something that you can do. You just have to get a little bit more complicated, I guess, with your traffic sources in the future, especially as you notice that your member count starts to slow down pretty significantly, where you might go a month and maybe you've only picked up 10 new members or something like that. It's a good indication it might be time to start promoting to some other new groups, things of that nature, or to even start looking at some other possibilities. One of these, once you get your actual website built, you can easily cross-promote your Facebook group from the website itself by just simply adding in a link to the menu, for example, or down at the bottom of each of the pages or posts that you create, putting a link down there, encouraging people, instead of leaving a comment on your website to talk about or discuss whatever it is that article is about, direct them over to Facebook, to your Facebook group instead to discuss it. This way, you kind of get benefits from all over the place. You're going to be able to build up new Facebook group members using all the other tactics that I've been talking to you about. But when you get traffic to your website that did not originate from Facebook, if that traffic came from a Google search, for example, you don't just want that person to land on your website and to read through it like everybody else does. You at least want the opportunity to get that person to join part of your long-term audience. So you'll be slowly taking search traffic and turning them into audience members. So you'll also be able to grow your audience over time just by incorporating a simple cross-promotion on your own website. Now you can do things like paid advertising. You really don't have to, though. I didn't do any paid advertising with my carnivorous plant group, with my website. I would maybe consider doing it at some point if I had a good reason to, if I had a good audience to promote an advertisement to. What I mean by that audience, I guess, is it could be confusing because it's different from what I've been referring to as an audience throughout this whole class. On Facebook, for example, you can create a Facebook pixel within the advertising system, and you just copy and paste simple HTML code onto your own website, and then Facebook can actually track the Facebook members that visit your website. And then later you can choose that group of people as an audience, and you can promote a paid Facebook ad to those people. So for example, over time, as you get more and more people that are visiting your website, you might be able to build up a Facebook audience and to kind of cross promote it to where even if they never click from your website over to Facebook, the next time that person is on Facebook, they might see a little ad in the sidebar promoting your website or promoting your Facebook group especially, because that's really what we're talking about here. I normally do not like to put paid advertising money into an Amazon affiliate website for the simple fact that the cost per click on most paid advertising these days is pretty high, and the commission that you'll earn off of an Amazon sale by comparison is pretty low. And you can't just send one person to get a sale. Sometimes you might have to send five people or 10 people or 20 people, maybe even 50 or 100 people, just depending on what you're promoting and how you're promoting it. So you don't want to be spending 50 cents a click or $1 a click to get people to your website when you might only be earning $5 from the sale of a product. However, if you can send those people to your Facebook group instead to get them to join as part of your ongoing audience, then you can make a lot more cost-effective use out of that paid advertising. So instead of paying $1 per click, you're essentially paying maybe $1 per lead instead. That lead being a part of your audience. And then you can get that person to click over and over and over again going into the future and reduce your cost per click for that traffic quite significantly. Normally, this is not really within reach of a standard Amazon website, but since we are incorporating the audience with this particular type of site, it then becomes something that we could at least consider using. Again, it's not necessary. You can certainly do this without ever putting in a penny really into this strategy, minus setting up your actual website. If you want it to go faster, even faster than what I've kind of laid out for you, showing you my own experiences and examples, paid advertising again is certainly a possible way that you can go, but definitely not something that you have to do by any means. Over time, even if you do nothing that I have listed here for this long-term growth section, you'll still grow your Facebook audience slowly over time by just getting a base group of people in there. Facebook will help to cross-promote that audience for you, and it may not go fast, but you will get new members slowly. For example, here in my group, if I scroll down to the bottom, I can see there's a number of other groups here that are getting suggested to me to join. These are groups that I'm not currently a member of, but Facebook feels like they relate to this group, or maybe some of the same people could be in this group. This one, for example, has a number of my friends that are in the group. Others might be relating based off of keywords or based off of some other factor that Facebook has used to connect them together. Maybe the same people are in this group and my group itself. So Facebook will promote your group in this same manner as long as you've set up a relevant title, a decent description and keywords so Facebook can actually discover the group and suggest it to relational groups ultimately. Now ultimately, your goal with this class is to work on getting your Facebook group created and to getting some initial audience members into it. If you're brand new to the hobby and you don't have really any connections in terms of other people online, the online community that would be centered around that hobby, definitely spend some time connecting with some of those fellow hobbyists and experts. Try to seek some of them out, try to become Facebook friends with them. Also try to seek out people that are running other relational Facebook groups. Once you kind of have this base network that you can work off of, create your Facebook group, set up the initial settings, and then you can build your initial audience members by first adding in these Facebook friends that you already have, and then cross-promoting your website or your Facebook group, on other Facebook groups. You really just need to get even one or two Facebook groups with a couple thousand members in them that will agree to allow you to cross-promote like that. And you'll be able to build up a few hundred members in a pretty short period of time. And this gives you a really nice base for you to start working on. Then you can kind of continue on from there, working on continued engagement within your group and also slowly working on long-term growth of getting more members to your group over time. This is, again, is something that you will want to kind of continue to work on, at least gradually, throughout the course of this series and even going into the future. Even as you begin to work on the actual website itself, once we get to those portions of this series, you'll want to make sure that you still put a little bit of effort into this group. You don't want it to go stagnant while you're working on your website. And in fact, if you continue to put forth a little bit of effort into it, you can significantly grow your audience base just simply while you are working on the website itself. So again, that's why we start here with the audience building before we actually even break ground on building the website itself. I would now like to go ahead and open up the floor to any questions that you may have. Please feel free to type them into the chat box for me at any time. Looks like I have a couple here already. I can go ahead and start with those. Kay was asking a little earlier, I don't have a hobby other than learning about internet marketing and living frugally. Hey, well, sometimes living frugally can be a hobby for a lot of people. It might not involve spending much money, obviously, but sometimes there are things that you can recommend for people to buy that will help them to live more frugally. And there are certainly online communities that revolve around that type of stuff. Even if you don't have any hobbies whatsoever, you can still pursue this type of strategy. Simply pick a hobby that you feel like will work out good with this approach, something where you can find a lot of activity taking place on social media, like in Facebook groups, places where you can confirm that people are buying online products having to do with that hobby. And, you don't have to learn about the hobby yourself. Go out on a Facebook group, a really popular one having to do with your hobby, and just put out a message saying something like, hey, I'm going to be starting this new website, and it's, going to relate to the hobby. I'm looking for somebody with a lot of knowledge about, this particular hobby that would be willing to help out. Just simple stuff, publishing some pictures, writing out some articles, maybe shooting some videos, just kind of depends on what the hobby is really about. And even if you can't really afford to say, hey, I want to hire you to do all this stuff, you can offer a partnership with them. Say, you be the expert, kind of the face of it all, and do the content, obviously, because you have the knowledge, and you take care of the marketing end of it, and split earnings down the middle. There are, a lot of people in hobbies with zero marketing knowledge that may not even realize that they could turn some of that knowledge into money, and they just may want to make some supplemental income to help to cover with the expenses of their hobby. And so something like that, could be pretty appealing to not everybody, but if you, put a public notice out there that's going to get in front of a couple thousand people that are in your hobby, chances are there's going to be a few of them at least that would be interested in doing something like that. So there's definitely ways that you can go about doing this even if you don't have a hobby, or if you don't have a lot of knowledge about your own hobby, or you don't have the money to outsource, or just don't have the time to do the work yourself. There's certainly other opportunities. Let's see, Kay, I'm not entirely sure if you can search on Facebook to try to find existing buy-sell trade groups or not. I mean, I would think you can. I'm looking here to see. I've personally never searched for that. You would think since it is an option of theirs that would be some kind of a search option, but as far as I can tell, it doesn't look like there is any way to search for that though. It looks like you'll have to actually go into the group itself. The easiest way to tell when you're in an actual group, if the buy sell trade thing is active, right below the pinned post. So this right here would be a pinned post. You can see it marked right here as a pinned post. Right below that will be your sale posts. So if you have this little section of sale post, then it is marked as a buy sell trade group. Otherwise, if it's just nothing, if it goes straight to the recent activity section, then it is not using that feature. Let's see, Paul. Yeah, I guess to a certain extent, what you were asking earlier, what I was describing humanizes the process, and that's what creates the bond of trust. It is sometimes kind of hard to explain why to do a certain tactic, the way that I do it. And I don't create these tactics to build trust in people necessarily. It's more or less something that it's like a cause and effect type of thing. Like, we've gone out there and we started sharing a lot of our knowledge and experiences in this hobby and realized that there was a huge need for that type of thing, and that people a lot of times would put a lot of trust in us, taking our advice with some of these plants. If they get the wrong advice, it could mean killing hundreds of dollars worth of plants or even more. So, the the whole process just kind of made me realize that, this does kind of create a bond of trust with a lot of these people, especially if they're beginners in this hobby. Um, so, there's nothing tricky about it, in my opinion. Um, you're genuinely trying to help people, and yeah, it's not about trying to create a strategy necessarily. It's what works for me, and it also helps other people out, and I see it as like a win-win kind of a situation. And I'm all for those types of situations with online marketing. Unfortunately, you see a lot of people out there that are just kind of pushing it from, one-sided perspective. They're just out to make a sale and don't really care about what happens to the person completing that sale. You know, um, with the wrong kind of marketing approach, it's very easy to come across as, that kind of a marketer essentially. And ultimately, it doesn't sit that great with the average person. There's no reason for somebody to want to trust in or follow that type of thing. Alan is asking about newsletters. Yes, absolutely. Newsletters are great for cross promotions. It's not a necessity. That's kind of one of the other audience sources that I briefly mentioned in the beginning of today's class. Um, Something like an email newsletter list, if you want to build an email newsletter list, you can certainly do that with this strategy. It's essentially the same as building a Facebook group, except in a newsletter, it's really just your communication that everybody has to go off of. They're not really engaging with each other in a newsletter list. However, you can certainly build a newsletter list for your website, even something that's kind of connected with your Facebook group. And, it can even be as simple as we'll let you know when we're publishing new content, essentially. Kay is asking, do we start these groups off of our personal Facebook pages? You can do that way. I did. It really just kind of depends on what your personal situation may be. If there's a reason why you wouldn't want your personal Facebook friends and family members, for example, knowing about what you're doing, and you wanted to keep it a secret, by all means, you could create a different Facebook account to do it off of. Um, I don't really see a major reason for needing to do that in most cases, though. Even if your friends and family aren't interested in that type of a thing, I'd still create it off of your personal page. You still encourage people to follow, to friend you on your personal Facebook page and to join up with the group that way. But you can utilize that existing amount of friends that you may currently have on your Facebook account to help to drive some extra members to your group to get started. And things like that can again help it to be more appealing for other people to want to join your group, simply because they don't want to join a group that doesn't have people in it, or a group that doesn't really have activity taking place in it. So it's really up to you. I think it's quite okay to do it off of your personal Facebook page, and I do it that way. Unless you have a good reason not to, then I would recommend to do the same. Oh yeah, that's a great question, Kay. I'm glad you asked that. Actually, If what you're asking is what I'm thinking is kind of something I had intended on mentioning in tonight's class, but don't believe I ever did. Um, yes, can you copy a post from normal Facebook and post it to hobby Facebook as long as you give credit or whatever? Um, that's actually something that we will commonly do in our group. Either another post that is on Facebook, could be from a business page or a personal page, could even be from another Facebook group or something like that. You can certainly essentially share that group or share that post into your group. You could even go out and find, articles on other websites and share them. Sometimes we'll see just a random news article that'll be talking about carnivorous plants, and we share it in the group just because it's not that common that these plants are, featured in some kind of mainstream news or publication or something like that. So, when something like that comes up, yeah, we share links and posts and stuff like that, and just make sure we're, giving credit where due. If possible, we just try to reshare it using, the sharing feature that's on Facebook itself, or potentially on the website, if it's an article that we're reading that we want to then go and share to Facebook. So yeah, that's certainly quite okay. You can reference other people's content and, encourage conversation about it, discussion over it.